Okay, we are live. Hey everyone, this is Edwin Dearborn, another edition of Growth Driven, and I am with Michael Rubino, who is an author. He's a mold expert. He's an entrepreneur. He's an educator, and he's going to share with us some awesome stuff. So stay tuned. All right. So I am here with educator, mold expert, and author of the Mold Medic, Michael Rubino. Michael, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Edwin.
Yeah. So we were introduced to a mutual friend, Barry Kozier, who I partner with in marketing stuff and as a virtual chief marketing officer, and spoke very highly of you. Can you introduce people, like who you are, what you do, and what you're all about?
Yes. Well, thank you very much. My name is Michael Rubino. I'm the author of The Mold Medic, which is a book that's coming out due December 8th. And I am a mold expert and the president of All American Restoration Corp.
Awesome. And I'll just kind of scroll down here. So if you guys want to connect with Michael and get his book on the Mold Medic, go to allamericanrestoration.com. I'll feature this. I'll scroll this a couple times through our talk. So, mold, what an interesting business. if, I'm sure you didn't grow up thinking, okay, I'm going to get rid of mold as a career.
That's true.
Okay. You probably like me, you wanted to join the military, be a fireman or an astronaut or something like that. How'd you get into mold? Like what brought that about?
Well, like most young kids, I wanted to be a movie star, and that's very far from mold, of course. Yeah. What happened was my father has been a contractor for since I'm a little kid. He's been in business over 25 years, and his primary source of business is fire restoration. And so, I from a kid, I'd work with him on the weekends and, summers and things like that. And I'd go in, just sweeping stuff up as a general laborer. And I got to learn a lot about homes and construction of homes. One of the things that I saw a little bit as I got a little older, probably right before I went to college, I started noticing, we're in these homes. When you have a fire, obviously the fire department's going to introduce a lot of water to the environment. Yep. And naturally mold starts to grow. And I started asking my dad, does the insurance company pay for all that mold to get removed too? And he told me that, it's a constant struggle with the insurance company, getting them to acknowledge mold, getting them to pay for mold. And so I kind of went off to college just with that, engraved into my mind that, hey, there's seems to be some opportunity there to do the right thing for people. And I went to college. Oddly enough, my college roommate, his father was this big mold inspector. And his name's Steve Levy. He's a very well-known mold inspector, specifically for people who are sensitive to mold. And that's kind of what I've started to train into, right? But when I finished college, I decided to come back home to the New Jersey area. And I was working for my dad. And, again, mold being in the back of my mind and seeing how things were done from an insurance perspective. And I took the opportunity to learn as much as I could from Steve and my college roommate. And, now I know too much and I have to take responsibility for it.
There you go, man. It was weighing on your conscience.
Yeah.
And plus you also saw that there was an incredible business opportunity as well.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
go ahead.
There's a big demand actually for mold remediation done the right way. Especially there's a subset of the population where they estimate at least 25% of the population sensitive to mold. So that's 1 in 4 people are likely to be sensitive to it. So yeah, there's a growing demand for it.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring something about the sensitivity to mold. I don't know, it was maybe a year or two ago. I don't know if I watched it on YouTube or some TV show where there was a family that was exposed to mold and they kept going to the doctors and the doctors were giving them all these drugs and antibiotics because they thought they had the flu. And it wasn't until 2 years later that they discovered that the actual source of the family's illness was mold. And no one really wanted to acknowledge it until they brought in a mold expert. And I was thinking to myself, how many other families have flu-like symptoms and they think it's COVID or this or that, when really they've got mold in their home or their workplace?
It's probably a lot more than you would imagine. To date, in the past few years, I've helped over 500 families that were so sensitive and so sick that they couldn't even be in their home anymore.
Wow.
They had to vacate, live with family. These are people that were very desperate to solve the problem. And I've heard the stories. They've gone to 3 or 4 different doctors telling them, I can't find anything wrong with you. And finally they find this one holistic doctor or functional medicine doctor who's like, hey, you ever think about checking your environment for mold? They get a mold inspection and they realize things are really bad there. So it's a common problem. Respiratory symptoms, flu-like symptoms, allergy symptoms. These are all things that could be attributed to mold. So, getting your home checked for mold when you have nowhere to turn, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah. Sorry, my light fell off and I have to put it back on.
It's okay.
Not that I need it, but excuse me just for a moment here.
Sure.
Okay. So that's the power of live streaming, is things can go wrong and you fix them right midstream, right?
That's it.
So how do you go about educating people? Because I think there's a blind spot, about illness, about the power of mold, and not just with the homeowner, but the medical community has that blind spot. How do you go about educating people that, hey, mold may be part of the problem here? So
it's interesting you bring that up. We go to a lot of these health symposiums right now there's very few people gathering due to COVID, but normally they have these health symposiums. They have all sorts of conventions for medical aspects. And I typically go to those and I'll set up a booth and it'll say mold, mold remediation, mold expert. It'll talk about the things that we do. And doctors will come up to the booth and ask questions, and we'll guide them and get their contact information and have follow-up calls with them. So we want to educate the doctors, especially in functional medicine and holistic medicine, because we feel that those types of doctors are really looking for something like that, where they want to fix the form and function as opposed to just sell drugs, right? We have educational platforms for consumers. For instance, we're launching a whole educational platform on our website that hopefully will be live by the end of this week. That's going to educate our customers in, giving them a roadmap of how to hire a good inspector, how to hire a good mold remediation company. Maybe we're not the best fit for them, but we still want to educate them so they can make an informed decision, right? The other piece of this is our industry. So there's what's called Indoor Air Quality Association that I did a presentation at in February down in West Palm Beach for them. I did a whole keynote speech on, mold remediation is specifically for hypersensitive individuals and how there's this subset of the population that's severely underserved. And looking at the business aspect of things, I think in any business, if you can find that niche of people that are underserved, you're going to grow your business exponentially because there's a need that's not being filled by somebody else. It's very easy to jump into a competitive marketplace where there's businesses already fighting dollar for dollar for someone's business. But when you come in and you really find and help people, and you focus on helping, right? The more people you help, the more the money comes, right? You don't focus on the money, you focus on helping people. And the more you help, the better things get. So I think that's where I've had a lot of success, between educating, the service we provide, and of course, wanting to prevent this from occurring as well.
Yeah, this is excellent information, which I want to recap. If you're listening to the podcast or going to watch us later on YouTube, if you overserve the underserved, success will follow. And instead of trying to compete dollar for dollar, what you're doing is you're finding the right niche of people that are underserved. And of course, being underserved, if you can serve them, there's success that's going to come your way. And the other thing is you're taking a massive amount of responsibility. And instead of just traditional marketing, buy my service, you're going out and educating the healthcare field, your fellow individuals within your industry, your community. You're taking on what I believe is the real opportunity within content marketing. You can go out to these different circles, centers of influence, and educate them. I think that's the real power.
Yeah, I look at marketing in today's world. Things have changed a lot, but for me, marketing is about educating. It's no longer, hey, buy my stuff, and that was kind of
Totally
the
agree.
old guard. Is everything that you did was just, when the dot-com boom, right? It was just get the message out, get the message out.
Yeah.
Now it's about how can I educate the consumer to make the right choice. And if you have a product like we do that really does help people and really is the right choice for them, all you have to do is educate them on making that decision, and that's how you get that word out, that conversion rate up. And that's what we're trying to do. We want to educate people to make a good decision. And maybe it's not hiring us. Maybe they're looking for something different, and that's okay too. You got to know who your clientele is and really cater and do the best you can to deliver to that clientele.
Completely agree. If you're watching this now or watching this in the future, or you're listening, you can see down below allamericanrestoration.com. If you're listening to this on a podcast, just go to allamericanrestoration.com. And Michael Rubino has written a book. And what's the title of the book again?
So the book is called The Mold Medic.
The Mold Medic. Great. So you can go there, get the book, or actually it comes out.
It comes out. Yeah, but you can pre-order right now on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble. I know there's a couple. I saw just recently that there's a couple stores that are going to carry the book on consignment. So that's great. Hopefully, it'll be in stores near you. But yeah, it's a great book. It's information, trying to educate people on what to do if you have mold.
Great. And can you give us just a couple tips from the book about like what it covers and maybe some takeaways that if people watching this or listening to this, that they can kind of start to rectify that problem?
Yeah, so the book starts out really awesome in my opinion, not just because I wrote it, but it's called Honda versus Mercedes is the first chapter. And the reason I have that chapter in there is it actually is a true story where I was sitting across from a competitor at a kitchen table of a client who ended up hiring our competitor instead of us. Even though she hired us before previously and was very happy with what we did, she just felt like it was cheaper, better, just, get it out of the way quicker. And unfortunately, things didn't go well. So we got asked to come up there as a consultant and advise what was going wrong and how to get it better. And, the guy basically said, well, there's really nothing wrong with the way I do things. I've been doing it this way for 35 years. I'm just like the Honda of remediation and you guys are like the Mercedes of remediation, right? And so that line is stuck with me. But what it actually shows is that there's a massive problem that this guy's been in business 35 years and has no idea what the final product should look like and no idea what the results should actually, what results you should get from this final product. So I think that really shows us that you got 50,000 remediation companies out there and they're all doing things differently. There's no standardized process. So this book really tries to dive into a standardized process that we believe is the best process to follow, which guarantees to get those results. And it also, if you are experiencing a mold problem, this book's going to tell you what steps to take to getting that problem resolved in a finite fashion. No band-aids, no quick fixes, but really to improve the space so you never have to worry about the word mold again.
That's great. That's great that you're helping people that way. And you bring up a really good point that I would like to focus on just for a moment, which is, unfortunately, when you don't have all the information, consumers will focus on price as the differentiator of a brand. So they'll go, well, I can get a Lexus or a Honda. Well, the Honda's cheaper and they both have 4 wheels. Yes, but what's the experience like in a Lexus? I think that, and this is even more reason why books like yours from your brand and putting out content and podcasts and videos like this are so vital, because now we have another point to differentiate you from. It's not just price, but now you're telling them why the Mercedes is the Mercedes, the process that you go through, and now we've got more information to evaluate from.
Yeah, and it's true. We have, even still today, even when we educate consumers, every once in a while, you're going to have someone that just says, well, for me, it's $10,000 cheaper. I'd rather just go with that, and they don't understand that there's a difference in technology between the $10,000. It's not the same product. And I think that people have that misunderstanding. You know, the term mold remediation, that one guy in his price versus another guy in his price gets you to the same road. It doesn't. You know, there's so many different roads to take. You know, for me in remediation, I look at it as 3 pillars to success. You have removing the actual source of mold. Then you have pillar number 2 as correcting the conditions that led that source to come to fruition. And then you have cleaning up the contamination as the final pillar, because mold is going to rapidly produce contamination, whether it's mycotoxins, whether it's the mold spores themselves, hyphal fragments. There's things that come off of that source that get into the environment, and that's typically what's impacting the person. So it's not like they're going and eating their wall. They're you know, it's what's the mold's producing that's getting aerosolized and getting into their body. So if you're a mold remediation company, you're taught that there's only one pillar, which is remove the drywall, right? You're missing the other 2 pillars. And those other 2 pillars are not going to be as thorough enough, especially for someone who's sensitive. But even for the average person, imagine spending money on something and to have it come back or to have it still impact you. I mean, you didn't actually solve your problem. So yeah, it's hard in any industry to get people to understand value in prices. But there is a difference, and that's the main thing we need to educate people is there's a massive difference between that Honda or that Mercedes, between one mold company and the next.
Absolutely. And I think that's true of a lot of businesses, but specifically and you brought up a good point, is I'm not just getting rid of the problem, the immediate problem, but I'm addressing the source of the problem. And if I don't address the source of the problem, you know, because I mean, basic logic science says the problem will come back. You know, a lot of people, the analogy I give in business is, you know, you can look at the nozzle and tie a knot in the hose or put glue in the nozzle, but if you're not turning off the faucet, sooner or later you're going to have the water come out some way or the other because you're not addressing the problem at the source point.
Right. It's very true.
Yeah. And what you're doing differently is, I think not only you're addressing the problem at the source point, but I think also some of the agents or chemicals or for lack of a better word, and correct me, what would be the better word, is you're also doing it in a different way. If you could maybe speak to that point. Yeah.
So, you know, biocides, fungicides, all these products out there, they contain very harsh toxic chemicals that off gas often for 48 or 72 hours afterwards, sometimes even longer. So what we actually use, we use all botanical products, no chemicals, no off gassing. They dissipate naturally within 48 hours. They're basically made of essential oils or hydrogen peroxide. And that's what we use, right? So when we use these botanical non-toxic products, the person going back into the house can enter the house immediately without having to be concerned about this exposure. We actually just got the contract for New Jersey Transit to disinfect all of New Jersey Transit trains. And that was our biggest selling point, was like, hey, look, you could potentially have someone in this train just a few minutes after it leaves, right? After we're done cleaning. You don't want to use these harsh products that people are using on the marketplace to disinfect, because someone could get sick from that exposure. So, I mean, I think that was a big selling point, and why New Jersey Transit ultimately went with us in that regard, because I mean, the products themselves could also be harmful to the person. So I think it's very important to always look at the safety data sheets for anything that you're going to be using or someone else will be using in your home.
That's incredible. What a great win. I mean, New Jersey Transit System, I mean, that right there is an opportunity to create almost like a mini documentary, if you will, of the before, during, and after process with a big government contract that probably might convince other people, maybe not as big as a brand, but like, hey, if New Jersey Transit trusted you and you took me through the process of why they chose you, I think that's a great content marketing opportunity right there.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, federal guidelines prevent us from filming there, but we certainly are able to talk about it. We definitely are able to kind of hypothesize what got us that bid. I think, honestly, we did this big PR campaign back when COVID first hit. We cleaned almost every first responders vehicle facility in the state of New Jersey completely free of charge.
Wow.
When we got approved for that PPP funding, we said, hey, how do we utilize this to keep our guys busy? But instead of keeping them on the couch, let's get them to give back to the community. We utilized that. We had this big PR campaign. I mean, almost every city in New Jersey joined. And then shortly after that, we got the call from New Jersey Transit. So it goes to show you like how good PR can bring awareness to your brand and your company, and really open doors that you never thought possible just by giving back. And I think, we just, the cards aligned for us perfectly at that exact moment where, PPP came out and that opportunity allowed us to do that. But it doesn't necessarily have to be this big, large scale PR campaign. Just doing stuff even minutely and letting people know about it. I think if news organizations pick it up, you could get someone like New Jersey Transit to see what you're doing. And that, right after that, they've called us twice now on 2 different bid presentations. And they liked that we were a small company. They liked what we were doing. They liked what we had to say. And we came in there pretty competitively.
That's awesome. I'm a big believer in PR. Tell me, when it comes to your public relations and your marketing, what's kind of like your fundamental strategy as a company? Take me through that process.
Well, I think PR is a lot about opportunity. You have to, the stars have to align where something that you can do actually will make a difference at that exact moment in time. And I think a PR is a lot about timing, but I think our fundamental as a company is we want to help people, right? So this whole book launch obviously is going to be good PR because we're giving out free information where we could have easily have, kept that proprietary so that other people couldn't compete, because it's not about that, right? What it's about for us is this book helps more people. So there's going to be naturally good PR with that. That's also going to create good marketing, to be able to say, hey, we're not just another remediation company. We wrote the book on that. I think that's a powerful marketing message, right? But for us, what's our next step? I think our next step probably is our next PR campaign that's very personal to me. What I want to do is, I can't tell you guys how many people I visited that they just don't have the money to pay anybody for remediation, and their house is really sick and it's making them sick. So my next PR campaign is going to be to start a foundation to help underprivileged families who are living in really not good living conditions at all, and be able to raise funding to help those families. Families that are making less than $50,000 a year, that really just could not afford at all a $20,000 or even $30,000 remediation. And sometimes, unfortunately, that's what it takes if the house is that way. That's my next PR campaign of what I'm looking to get into. And I say that now. There could be another opportunity for something to slide in first, but that's the next big change that I want to create and give back.
I think that's incredible. I'll tell you why I love that. I mean, there's the obvious reason, it's helping people, but I think that, to me, when you live in these poor neighborhoods and you see kids struggling, I mean, as a father of 4, that just hits me right in the heart. When you see a child undernourished in an environment that's toxic on so many levels, I just, it's that, your just heart goes out to them, and now you're doing something. And how many kids out there are going to school sick, and it's because of mold? And you brought up the earlier number of 1 in 4. Well, maybe 1 in 4 of these kids in these inner cities are sick because they're mold. The parents are buying them cough syrup or aspirin, which of course is not addressing the actual cause. Right. And now you're going to start a foundation. So best of luck on that. Hey guys, I'm with Michael Rubino, and I'm going to show the link down below, or the website. I want you guys to go to allamericanrestoration.com, not just for his services, but get his book. And I think that this book will shed light on something that I know, just own research in the last couple of years, that mold is actually quite a large problem in America, if not the world. but obviously we live here in America, so we're going to talk about that. And, there's a lot of families out there that are probably struggling with it and don't know it. And this book can help educate you about it. Also, just out of curiosity, what inspired you to write the book? Like, what was the trigger that went, I need to write a book?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, every year we get a little bigger as a company. We hire more people. That's great. We're able to help more people. And that's kind of why we do this. And we look at strategic locations of where we want to open up our next branch and help those people. And we try to do studies on where the demand is, where this need for this underserved population is.
Right.
And one day I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, I mean, it's going to take me like 20 years to get this thing nationwide and get this, out there enough to help as many people as I'd like to help. And I said, why don't I write a book? Writing a book, we have the information, the knowledge is all in my head. Let's put it on paper and help people, reach the masses without having to, be everywhere to help people. So that was kind of the first thing. And, it becomes almost an addicting process because I've already started outlining my second book. And, my first book is going to segue into the second book. And the second book, I'll just tell you guys real briefly, is realizing that, okay, the first one is how do we solve the problem? Then the second one now dives into, well, where exactly does this problem need to be solved, right? Because we have how we solve it, now how, where, and why. And I started looking at, well, we don't build houses from new construction standpoint. I've been into new construction homes that were just built. People are ready to move in. They go through their final walkthrough or whatever, and they start feeling sick. And we get the call, there's this report, and it's like, oh my God, the contractor did 10 different things wrong to build this house, and now there's a massive mold problem. So I look at it from the construction industry. I had another client that they just closed on a house. The home inspector said the house was flawless. They're mold sensitive. They didn't realize that they could get a mold inspection or that was a thing to do before you bought a house. And so they buy the house, they close on it, they can't move in, it's making them sick. They now have to spend, I think it was $40,000 of remediation.
Wow.
That's how many problems that the home inspector missed. So I'm like, this thing is everywhere. It's construction, it's real estate. And then what about the renovation contractor, right? You want a new kitchen. You're not thinking about mold, you just want a new kitchen. He starts removing cabinets, right? He finds mold on the drywall. In his mind, there's no training for renovation contractors at all with mold. In his mind, he's going to think I removed the piece of drywall that had a little bit of dirt or mold on it, and that was it, right? So there could still be mold in that wall cavity that he just built back over, put brand new cabinets in. And I know that for a fact because I've had clients where I come in, I'm like, the kitchen looks immaculate. I'm looking at the report. I'm like, oh my God, did you guys just renovate this kitchen? Yeah. And you guys renovated on top of mold? Yeah, it's all got to come back out. And those are the things those are these unnecessary problems that we have in America that are so easy to fix. It just takes everybody doing a class. Imagine if Coldwell Banker required all their real estate agents to do a mold class, or to get a home inspector's license. It wasn't just an hour portion of mold. It was an actual class really diving into how to find mold, how to identify it, how to test for it. If we had all these situations in place, mold wouldn't be such a big problem across multiple different industries. So this second book is going to be all about diving into that and how do we solve that problem across all these different industries. So yeah, I mean, we want to get the information out there and we want people to be able to utilize it so that we can inspire some change here. And I think mold is something that we've neglected. We go into organic food. We, are against non-GMO. Well, I think now it's time we need to be against impractical practices that create mold in our environments and look at the air quality we're breathing in. I think it's important.
Yeah. I mean, now that you mention it, I mean, what's blowing my mind is I'm really now, I mean, and I've been aware of the problem. I'm not some guy that's like, mold, what's mold? Like I understand the problem. And even still with this interview today, it's blowing my mind, A, how big the problem is. And number two, how many people are missing it? And like you said, real estate agents, land developers, construction industry, remodelers. We could go on and on and on. How many industries that if they were like you said, had a class on this. We could spot it before it became a problem, resolve the problem, and make a lot of people and a lot of families healthier because of the knowledge you're going to share. I'll tell you one thing that I've learned, because I've authored a couple books and I'm now mid my third one, is, and I'm going to tell this, if you're listening to this or watching this and you want to become a content creator, the word authority is derived from the word author. When you author something, and when you look up the word author, it's not just writing a book. An author is a creator of something. You can author a podcast, you can author a blog, you can author a screen, a television show, you can author a radio show. But the word author means the creator of something. And we intuitively look to authors as authority. So I think what Michael's doing correctly here, to build his authority in public relations and to reach out, he became an author. And that is something that if you want to build your authority, and that's what we try to do as virtual chief marketing officers, is help build brands authority, is become an author of content. And now you're doing that. And I know that if you continue to write these books, speak and network and share your books, it will build your authority for your brand.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's for me, just so you guys know, I'm 32 years old. So when a 32-year-old comes into an industry and shakes things up and says, hey, you guys that have been doing this for 35 years, longer than I've been alive, are doing it incorrectly, you're going to ruffle some feathers. And, we have obviously really good ideologies. We've helped over 500 people just in these past 3 years. I mean, the things that we're doing are working. We have empirical data to prove it. But it's still just that you need to build that credibility, that authority, and really get into the hands of people that you're trying to help, and let them push you up and say, you know what, this guy has a point.
Yeah, and I wouldn't let the age bother you. I mean, Sir Isaac Newton at the age of 24 revolutionized mathematics. If you go look, I mean, you want to talk about ruffling feathers.
Yeah.
Sir Isaac Newton bucked up against, the authorities of his time, and at the age of 24 completely flipped all the concepts of mathematics. So sometimes it takes a young person that isn't and I know this is a pun, has moldy ideas that are breaking down the foundation of an industry. And here you are, not only just detoxing homes, you're detoxing the ideas. You're removing the moldy old ideas of the industry and getting them to rethink fundamentally how we build homes, how we inspect a home, everything that we would normally take for granted regarding mold. You're bringing in a whole new awareness and set of processes of how to deal with this problem.
Yeah. And the word problem is perfect, because as an entrepreneur, I look at myself as a problem solver, right? Mm-hmm. If I can solve this problem so indefinitely that the need for my service no longer is there, then I would be very happy with that, because then I would just find the next problem that needs solving and dive into that. So it's, a lot of people have asked me, like, why would you give all this information out? What if you're building your own competition? I don't look at it that way. I look at it as, listen, if there's more people jumping into this that really see what we're doing is working and really want to make an impact, I mean, it's not going to be done by me alone. It's going to take groups of us pushing forth the right message, getting things done the right way. And you know what? If I can push myself out of the market altogether, then I consider that a great success in what I'm trying to achieve here as a person. And there'll be another problem that I'll need to solve.
There'll never be lack of problems. And what you do is you're starting a movement, and then other people will want to join you. Okay, well, what's the next movement?
Yeah.
And what's the next movement after that? So there's no lack of problems on this planet for us to solve. And even if we solved this massive problem, there's going to be another massive problem to solve after that. So I
absolutely
completely concur with you. Hey guys, again, I'm with Michael Rubino. I'm going to show the website here at the bottom. And if you're listening and not watching, it's All American with an N, restoration.com. Go to his website, pre-order his book. I'm telling you, this mold problem is massive across this country and even the world, I'm sure. But again, we are Americans, so I'm going to speak to that. In America, if you're a homeowner, you're looking to buy a new home, or you're a home inspector, you're a realtor, you're a construction guy, I think it is upon you to take responsibility to understand this, become an educator about this problem so that we can keep families safe from this potential, these pathogens, if, for lack of a better word, and keep people healthy and respiratory, specifically with COVID, because, you know, I mean, if you've got mold and you get COVID, you're already you've got a pre-existing condition that could make you more likely to be injured by COVID. That's the other thing that we really need to take a look at.
Yeah.
So
yeah, interesting enough, you know, they've already started talking about doing studies on. They have a hunch right now that having COVID, you know, is going to be another category that could make you more susceptible to environmentally acquired illness. You know, and there's some categories already, like autoimmune disorder, Lyme disease, that having COVID could potentially be another category of illness, of a pre-existing condition that could make you more susceptible to an environmentally acquired illness, like having mold toxicity. So, you know, something to think about. I mean, we'll find more about that as time goes on, but it is interesting to think about. And I think it's important to be aware of your environment, aware how it impacts your health, so that, you know, you can stay healthy and stay proactive.
Yeah, I'm sure that in the future, and that could be your third book, I think that there's going to be a connection, and you could probably team up with a medical doctor of the connection with mold and COVID. That could be an international bestseller right there. Just the COVID mold connection, right? And
Sure.
I'm sure there's doctors out there that are going to be studying this. Michael, thank you so much for being on the show. I think you've provided, I mean, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot, actually.
Good.
I'm very excited about this. I've got a whole brand new awareness of mold, the scope of the problem, as well as the scope of the solution to the problem by getting other people on board with this movement. So all the best of luck to you with this book, future books. And I know that I'm going to see you in the next 10, 20 years, probably speaking at realtor conventions and construction conventions. And since I live here in Las Vegas, I'm sure sooner or later
I'll be out there. Yeah.
You'll be out there. We'll go out and have a great steak.
Yeah, you're probably not wrong. And thank you so much again for having me. And it was a great talk. And I hope people learned a lot. And you know, if anybody ever wants to reach out to me, if anything that I said connects with you, you know, check me out on my website, and you'll find my email on there. And let's help each other start the conversation.
Amen. Hey guys, I'm here with Educator, mold expert, and author of the Mold Medic, Michael Rubino. Thank you so much once again, and welcome to this new world of understanding mold. And thank you for once again attending Growth Driven. We'll talk soon.